Hey, dearly beloved, we celebrate the solemnity of our Lord Jesus Christ, the King of the universe. This solemnity concludes the liturgical year and focuses on the center of all our Eucharistic celebrations through the year, Jesus Christ, King and Redeemer. Jesus is King, and yes, the King of Kings. In kingship is power. Unfortunately, power has often been categorized negatively. We hear expressions like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And yet, power is necessary for the administration of any society or community. Without someone being in charge, confusion and chaos ensue. God has given kings power to rule, and yet this power is one for which they would have to give account. Our first reading was taken from the book of Daniel, chapter 7. Chapter 7 begins the second section of the book, that is, chapter 7 through 12, which is a series of visions of Daniel and their interpretations. In our passage, Daniel sees a vision of one like a son of man. Remember, of course, that this portion was written in Aramaic, Bar Enosh, which is different from the common Ben Enosh or Ben Adam, which you find in other parts. We see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. This Son of Man receives dominion, glory, and kingship from the Ancient One, or as it's also said, the Ancient of Days. The Ancient One, whose throne was fiery flames and his clothing white as wool. The Ancient One had all the power and all the glory, and he gives them to the Son of Man. The question is, who is this Son of Man? What does the phrase mean? It is quite striking that the phrase is not so frequent in the Old Testament. We find it in the book of Numbers in Isaiah 51:12, 56:2, and 3 Psalms 8:36 and 144. But in all these passages, the phrase the Son of Man has no apocalyptic nuance. But the New Testament is so much different, especially the synoptics as regards the Son of Man, because we find the phrase not less than 70 various times, and it only appears on the lips of Jesus in the synoptics. In fact, we don't find it in the Pauline epistles, and it appears only once in the Acts of the Apostles. This Son of Man receives dominion, glory, and kingship. In the second reading from the book of Apocalypse, we hear that Jesus Christ is the one who is coming on the clouds, whom everyone will see. Thus, the puzzle of Daniel 7:13, the unnamed Son of Man coming on the clouds, receiving power and dominion from the Ancient of Days, is finally named in the book of Revelation. While other kingdoms will pass away, as we understand from the four beasts earlier described in Daniel 7, who represent the kingdoms of Babylon, Medes, Persia, and the Alexandrian kingdom, peculiarly represented by Antiochus IV Epiphanes. The kingdom of the Son of Man will never pass away, unlike these other kingdoms which will pass away. It will be eternal and it will be universal. It is quite astonishing, dear people of God, that this glorious and powerful imagery of the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven is invoked in the Gospels only within the context of the Passion narratives. In fact, the only time that Jesus quotes directly from Daniel 7:13 is when he stands before Caiaphas, the high priest. Caiaphas asks Jesus in Mark 14 and Matthew 26, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of God?" And Jesus replies, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." In fact, at his words, Caiaphas tore his clothes because he knew the implication of the statement that Jesus made. Hence, the glory, the dominion, and the kingship of the Son of Man is not to be understood outside the context of the passion and suffering of Christ. When Jesus stands before Pilate, he indeed stands as one who has received dominion, glory, and kingship from his Father, who is the Ancient of Days. Yet he has to undergo suffering and passion at the hands of his creatures in order to won the type of kingship he has come to establish on earth. His kingdom is indeed not of this world, for the kingdom of this world is marked by autocracy and oppression. It is marked by violence and terrorism. The servants of the king would have been fighting to prevent the arrest of their king. If his kingdom were to be of this world, violence, how much energy is spent, dearly beloved, by the kings of this world to assert their authority and make their power felt? Children. Children, some as young as the age of 14, were arraigned for treason in the recent past in our national history simply because they partook in a protest against the sitting government. The kingdom of this world is marked by power play. It is marked by lobbying. It is marked by ruthlessness, corruption, and political correctness. But the kingdom of the Son of Man is marked by service. Hence, the glory, honor, and power is not diverse nor separate from the path of passion and sacrifice, which he consciously takes upon himself. Indeed, he is a servant king who has come to serve and not to be served, and to give his life as a ransom for many. How beautiful will it be if the kings of this world will indeed learn from this great example. This solemnity, dearly beloved, is marked by Corpus Christi, the Corpus Christi procession in the church in Nigeria, due to peculiar weather conditions of our nation. From the simple processions we normally have during Mass, the entrance procession, the offertory procession, communion, and recessional, we go elaborate today, having a public procession with the Blessed Sacrament. A procession is a public declaration, a confession of one's religious belief and conviction. Catholics in various parts of the country would today proudly process to declare that Christ is indeed their King. But we can ask, what does it really mean when we say Christ is our King? Do we mean what we say, and are we saying what we mean? Do we have the full and absolute authority? Does he have the full and absolute authority in our hearts and in our lives? Do we ask him before we make and take our decisions? Do we report back to him at the end of each day? Do we seek his opinion on many matters of our personal and family life? Do we give him time in prayer, and do we take his word seriously? The solemnity of Christ the King is celebrated on a single day, but its reality and application linger the whole year. Christ must be our King at all times and in all places. And thus, joyfully, we join Blessed Miguel Pro, the Mexican priest who died vicariously during the Cristero War on November 23, 1927, to proclaim, Viva Cristo Rey! Long live Christ the King! May the light of Christ dispel every darkness from our lives, and may he reign in our hearts through Christ our Lord.